What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of your favorite podcast, The Misplaced American. I'm your host, Justin White. I hope everyone's doing okay during this lockdown. Hope you're staying creative. Hope you're staying busy. Hope you're finding ways to stay sane. I'm kind of struggling a little bit. I've started playing PlayStation a lot more, and I've kind of reached the end of Netflix. But I'm doing my best to work out as much as possible. Started doing cardio. And if you know me, that's a big deal. But I'm doing a solo cast today, mainly because I just kind of want to, give your brain a break from all the anxiety talk, all the talk of coronavirus, all the talk of fears, and I kind of just wanted to give you another insight about me. I was a strange child, but no, I want to look back to, I guess, middle school time and almost like going into high school. I remember in middle school, I was trying my best to, I guess, most people are trying to figure out who you are. Uh, I was this long, lanky kid. Girls were bullying me. I'll never forget this one bully, this one girl. I won't say her name. She would come to school every day, and she would like walk past me like, "Hey, stupid," and like bump into me. And then she had like an entourage of girls with her or guys following her, and they'd always like make fun of me, make fun of my. I had braids at the time. Make fun of my braids, make fun of my nose, make fun of my face. Just anything they could. Kids are mean. Kids are cruel, but they were the cool group. And how they dressed was how I wanted to dress. How they talked was how I wanted to talk. And I remember like going asking my parents when we went clothes shopping, and we weren't the richest family. I thought that once you it was normal for people to get clothes twice a year. On Christmas and on income tax time. I knew those were the only times I would get new clothes or new shoes. So if I missed my shoes up, like right after Christmas, I would have to survive until income taxes came, and if I messed those up, I wouldn't get shoes until the start of the next school year. And but that was, yeah. So I remember always trying to like do my best to when we went shopping, like try to figure out what everyone else was wearing so I could try to wear that. And it never worked because I was always a step behind everyone else. My jeans were never baggy enough. I was raised in the baggy jeans phase. My shirts weren't ever big enough. My long white tees weren't ever long and white enough. I strapped my Air Forces up the wrong way. Stuff like that. It seemed like no matter what I did, it was always wrong. And I remember going to my mom crying, and she told me, she's like, "Baby, you're picked out to be picked on. You're made to be different." And I told her I don't want to be different. I want to be like everyone else. I want to get a girlfriend. Everyone in middle school at the time was talking about kissing girls and making out with girls and like doing all these things with girls. And I just remember like I never even held hands with a girl. I like girls. I just I didn't. No one talked to me. I remember I had my best friend Jamel. He was such a confident, like we were both like in the same boat. He was such a cool like nerdy guy just like me, but he was just so confident about his nerdiness, and he didn't care what people thought. If he had a problem with him, he would just say like, what's your problem?" He didn't care, but I couldn't be that way. I tried so hard to make everyone like me, and it never worked. I remember going to school, and I was at the lunchroom table one day, and people would just walk by my chair and kick my chair or push me under or push me in. And I remember I told my mom what happened. I was like, she's like, "How was your day?" I was like, "Well, someone pushed my chair, pushed my food away, this and that." And she's like, "Next time that happens, you need to go stand up for yourself. Bullies don't like to be, confronted." And I was like, I'm not, in my head, I was like, "Yeah, you're right." And then it happened the next day, and I was like, "Oh, she's crazy. I'm not gonna do that." but but she was right because there was one day where I kind of just had enough. I can't remember his name, Chris or something. Uh, he like shoved my chair, and I got up and smacked my table, and I was like, "Do you want to go? Do you have a problem with me?" Like this, and I like lost it, and he was like, "Man, just leave me alone. It's not even worth it, bro." And like walks away. And if you knew my town, uh, it's I wouldn't say predominant. It was predominantly white. It was just more of you were one way or another way in my town. And it sounds so bad, but looking back at it, that's how it was. You were if you were black or white, it was either you were either preppy white or white trash. And I'm not calling people white trash, but it's just how it was. Like you were either preppy white or white trash, or you were ghetto black, or you were a black guy trying to act white. Those were your only options. Well, to me, that's what it seemed. And I didn't see a lot of that until, like I said, middle school. And my first real encounter with racism, for instance, was when I was in middle school and I used to walk to my mom's job after school. And because she worked so late, so I would go do my homework at her job until she drove me home. And I remember leaving the school and driving or walking to the back way to her job at the hospital. And this older white lady was with her kids or with her grandkids, I'm assuming. And I'll never forget, this is my first memory of racism. And she was with her grandkids, and I was walking by, innocent kid. I've never stolen a piece of candy in my life, and I'm a backpack, regular, my normal me. And she looks at me, and she stops, and she rushes her kids in the car, and she looks at me, and she rolls her eyes, and she locks her door, and she like speeds off. And I was like, and at the time, I was like, well, that's weird. And I don't think I ever told anybody at that point, at that time, that, I was like, well, that's weird. I've never encountered stuff like that before. And then I remember telling someone later, and someone was like, oh, that's so racist. And I was like, excuse me? And they were like, yeah, like, think about it, if you were a white guy walking by, but she had done that? And I thought about it, I was like, well, I guess not. And then someone started telling me, well, maybe it's how you dress. And I was like, oh, maybe you're right. Maybe it was kind of dressed kind of, thuggish. And at the time, and again, at the time, how I dressed was how all black people dressed. Baggy jeans, big shirts, hats, maybe braids or dreads, box braids, or afro. And so, but to me, it's just I was this innocent, good kid. I'd never done anything wrong, decent grades, and so, like I said, in my town, you're either one way or the other. And so I was trying my best to be the normal black guy. I didn't tell people I watched anime. I was this nerdy black kid who wanted to read comic books. I love to draw. I love to read. Because every time I said something like that, someone's like, oh, that's white people stuff. I'm like, oh, man, you're right. Like, I don't want to be, I don't want to be labeled as a white guy or a black guy trying to act white. So I tried to act black. And that did not go over well for me, because every time I tried to act black, I guess you could say, people were making fun of me for it. And I just remember going through middle school and just struggling, and I reached a point where I finally started making like decent friends. And I remember sitting at the lunchroom table with my friends Terrence, Melvin, rest in peace, Karan, I want to say Shamar, and I can't, it was one more person. And we would just sit around the table. We would be beatboxing, or we'd be like banging on making beats on the table, playing jokes, like running games on each other. And I remember one day, someone told me at the table, like, oh, like, Justin, I heard this girl over talking on the school bus saying, she would think you were cute, or you would get more girls if you just acted more your age or acted more mature. And I was like a 14-year-old, 15-year-old kid at the time. I was like, maybe you're right. Maybe I do act too immature. Making fart noises. It's normal stuff like kids did at the time. Like 13, 14-year-old kids did at the time. And so yeah, I was like, yeah, maybe you're right. So I remember like one whole school year, I just like didn't talk. I went to school. I remember like putting on gray contacts because I thought, girls like pretty guys with pretty eyes. So I remember buying colored contacts. And if you know me and remember me, everyone remembers the the colored contact phase, because I was a dark skinned little kid with an afro and gray contacts, and that was the worst. And so because I wanted so bad for girls to like me. I wanted my first kiss. I wanted to hold my hand with a girl. I wanted to have a girlfriend so badly. I remember being so into like poetry and all these other things, but like I couldn't tell anyone that because I was like, I gotta act like this mature, serious black guy and this and that, and it didn't work. I remember not having fun for one whole year in school, and I remember like going into that summer. I want to say eighth grade summer. I like gave up on that and just kind of came back to it and started the school year again. And we had this math teacher named Miss Hopkins, and I remember I'm bad at math. I'm horrible at math. I'm pretty sure I was floated through math. But I remember staying at school every day trying to get tutoring on math. And I think she saw me, being filling out a place one day. And I remember she asked me, she was like, why do you try so hard to fit in at school or during the class during the day? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, when so and so isn't around, or these people aren't around, you act a certain way. And she's like, but the moment they come in, you immediately change your mood, change your tone. You become this quiet, no, I mean not quiet, but you become this like loud, obnoxious kid. And she's like, that's not you. She's like, I can tell it's not you because it seems like you're like just being loud. And I was like, well, I don't see what you mean. It's not me. And she was like, all right, I'm just telling you. She's like, you don't have to act a certain way to fit in. She's like, you're gonna fit in one day eventually. And I don't think I've ever told anyone that, but I'll never forget that because that was probably the most one of the biggest moments in my life, like biggest influential moments of advice in my life. Excuse me. Biggest influential moments in my life because I always thought, I had to act a certain way around certain people to become this popular person. So, yeah, I mean, I go through the school year, and I'm finally starting to kind of make friends. My best friend Karan comes around. My friend Terrence lives down the street from me. Everything's kind of working out, and I remember going. So, like I said, I remember that summer. Everyone remembers the story about me, like I said, doing 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups every night. So I wouldn't be the small bully kid going into high school. But I remember going into high school, and like I said, the whole world just kind of opened up. I've still never kissed a girl, but I'm going into ninth grade, and I just remember like it was like I was mind blown how like these beautiful women like you go from seeing these like the same high school girls every single day, and I'm from a really small town, so if you know the same people from the age 0 to university, like you're all going to like if you're not rich or you're not a genius, you're going to Beaufort Community College or Pitt Community College. uh, and so you're going to pretty much know the same people from kindergarten all the way through 22, 24. But I remember walking into high school and seeing like these beautiful women just like walking up and down the hallways, and I was like, Jesus, like this is where I'm gonna be. This is it. I'm gonna find me a girlfriend this year, or this high school's gonna be my time. And I was like, I'm not gonna be bullied anymore. I'm not gonna be this weird kid. And I remember being in English class, and if you're not in my town, if you weren't in like honors or AP English classes, your classes were predominantly black or black and Hispanic. And not a slight towards anyone. This was just what it was. And so I remember I enjoyed English so much. My teacher, Miss Lewis, she made it so much fun. And that's when I really, really like, I think she was the first person to like pull out the fact that I love poetry so much. And so I started writing more because of her. She actually, and I love Greek mythology, and she gave me my first Greek mythology book. She pulled out the fact that I love writing, and I think almost made 100 in that class. But the class was full of just the loud, I want to say the people who, again, at that time, if you weren't acting black, you were acting white. So people who acted black, but just the louder kids who just made it a scene or made themselves known in class. And that wasn't me. I was not the kid who wanted to, act out, make a scene. I knew my dad would not have that. My mom wasn't having that. So uh, I learned, and I greatly enjoyed English. And I remember my teacher pulled me to the side and asking me, she's like, "Why didn't you take honors English or whatever?" And I was like, I'm not that smart, this and that. I remember her telling my mom, be like, you need to put him in, I think during like a PTA meeting or something, or like a parents meet teachers meeting. It's like, oh, he's doing really good in English. Put him in honors English. So from every year after that, I was put into an honors class, and that's when my whole perspective changed about everything. Because in normal English classes, it was predominantly black. In honors and AP English, you probably had 2 or 3 black people in those classes. In a class of like 20 or 30, there was like 2 black people in this class. And those black people were the black people who were told, you don't act black. Now this whole new world opened to me, because I've always hung around and I hate using the term like acting black, because that's such a derogatory term towards how people who don't act a certain way act. But I spent my whole life trying to act black, and now I'm in a position where I can act white, and it felt natural. You know, I was able to wear, suit like sweater vest and bow ties and like suspenders, or British people call them what do British people call suspenders? Not the things that go to garter straps, but I'll think of it later. But I was able to wear, ties and sweater vests and suits and jackets. Like I was able to dress super nice and not feel ashamed about it. I was able to express the fact that I love reading, I love poetry, and no one made fun of me about it, because I was actually, it was applauded, and so I was shocked, but I remember going through high school, and the rumor started. It's like, oh, I heard you hate black people. And I was in gym class. And I was like, excuse me? And they were like, yeah, you hate black people. I was like, no, I don't. Like, I'm black. How can I hate black people? And they were like, no, you're always hanging out with all the white people. Why don't you come sit with the black people sometimes? And, I didn't know what to say. And so a lot of people don't realize you do this. But when you're given a label, you tend to not intentionally, but subconsciously live this label. So, for instance, if girls label a guy as a bad boy, maybe he's not a bad boy, but maybe he gives off that persona that he's a bad boy to keep that label going. And sometimes you do it with even bad things. So I began to live that way. I started to distance myself from things that in my head were black. And I'm thinking about it now, I'm super ashamed of how I was growing up for that, because I felt like black people abandoned me at one point. And this is a moment of honesty here. I don't think many people know this. So yeah, you guys are privy to some private information. I thought black people abandoned me. Every black person I knew, even some people in my family, would tell me, oh, you're acting white. You don't like being black. You're just a little spoiled boy. Keep those white friends around. And it reached a point where I was kind of like okay with it, because I remember, growing up, me and my black friends would just go to the store, go to a mall, go to Walmart, and just we'd be followed. Like somebody that worked in the store would just act like they were folding clothes next to us, or constantly re-racking the same shirt in the same area everywhere we went. And we all noticed it. And we never made a scene. And me and my friends, my black friends, we never stole anything. I think we would just go to the store just to window shop and just wish we had money, But I don't think I've ever stolen one thing. And then I remember starting to hang with my white friends, and I would never disclose anybody's name, but I remember hearing stories about what people did, what people do, all the things black people, my black friends, for instance, were accused of, my white friends were doing and got away with. And I just and this was years ago, but no, at the time it was fun and games, well, to them, but I just remember hearing things or seeing things. I was like, well, why is it okay for them to do and get away with, but I couldn't? I remember, being in the store and walking around with them, and they could just pick things up and just act like they were putting it in their pocket, or making jokes about stealing stuff, and no one looked twice at them, or us, for instance, because I was with them. But then the moment I'd walk in with my black friends, it was almost like we were convicted felons with the tattoo on our foreheads saying, like, watch me. And so the whole thing was kind of a mind, like a culture shock. Well, just a shock in general to me because why? Like, I've never done anything wrong in my life, but because of how I look and how I'm dressed, you're going to tell me that I'm more susceptible to stealing things than the guy wearing Sperry's and boat shoes and a collared shirt. But I kind of went with the role. I liked it. I like being able to stay out of trouble. I like being able to, you know, and it was nice because I remember growing up, I went to a predominantly black church, Southern black church. If you know anything about Southern black churches, it starts at like 9 a.m. and you don't get out till like 3 or 4. Then you go home just to come back to do a second service from like 7 p.m. to like 9 p.m. on a Sunday. So your entire Sunday was spent at church. Whereas I switched over and went to a predominantly white church. So instead of, spending all day at church, you would go in at maybe 9 or 10 and get out at 12. And just everything was just so different, like between the cultures. And to me, that was interesting. And so I tried my best to embrace it. And I remember my dad telling me, he was like, he's like, hey, keep your white friends, keep you out of trouble. And and my dad always gives me like bits of advice that I will never forget. My dad's probably in my eyes the wisest man in the world because he, like I said, he grew up in a time where it was completely different than what time I grew up in. So, but yeah, my dad always wants to be one of the best for me. He always wanted me to like get into computers because computers will be the future. And in hindsight, he was right, and I should have listened. So sorry, Dad. But yeah, I remember always walking around just with my white friends and just being treated completely different than I was with my black friends. So at one point, all my friends were white, and my nickname in high school was Whitey. And a lot of people think the nickname Whitey was because I acted white or because I dressed white. In all actuality, my wrestling coach called me Whitey because there were 2 Justins on the team, and I think so he called me Whitey because my last name was White. So, but yeah, it kind of stuck, and everyone called me Whitey, so I kind of fed into it a little bit more, and I remember jokes being passed around when I was in a group of my white friends, and they called me, token black guy. And at the time, I didn't know what that meant. I was like, oh yeah, I'm token black guy. I have a nickname. And I never had a nickname before other than, Whitey. I was like, yeah, I'm token black guy. I remember telling my mom, I was like, oh, they got a nickname for me. She's like, oh, what's that? It's like Token. And I'll never forget, she would drop what she was doing in the kitchen. She was like, don't you ever let anyone call you that ever again. And I didn't know at the time, I was like, what do you mean? What's wrong with being called Token? And she told me, that's wrong. Like, don't let anyone call you that. And again, as an adult, looking back, I see why she got so mad. Because if anyone tried to like label my daughter as anything, I lose it. But I just remember thinking back like how confused I constantly was because no matter what I did, it seemed like I was offending someone or hurting someone's feelings. Because if I was hanging out with white people, I was acting white and I was abandoning black people. But I was hanging out with black people, I was acting ghetto. Or I'm hanging out with my black friends, or I'm acting black. And I'll never forget reading this book called Acting White. And the author essentially lived through the same thing I lived. He lived through being told, excuse me, I gotta chill. He lived through being told, if you read books, if you're smart, if you're well spoken, that's acting white. And then he asked the question, why do white people have a monopoly on being educated? And that's something that kind of stuck with me as well, And I'm glad in 2020, that stigma is kind of almost dead, No longer is it acting white, it's acting educated, So black people can, be smart without acting white. I don't have to use the words yo or my man to and like be afraid or think that I'm acting ghetto. Because now it's like my friend Karan said, it's like code switching. I can turn it on and off if I want. If I want it, I can go back home and talk country, sit in the hood with my friends. And I'd be fine with it. But at the same time, I know I can also sit with my white friends and put on that face. But I also know that I won't let people demean me or make fun of me or belittle me for how I acted or how, I guess, how I am naturally. Sorry, I guess this took kind of a bit of a turn. I wasn't planning to talk about, I guess, how I felt racially growing up. I just kind of wanted to talk about my childhood. But I guess a big part of my childhood was trying to decide if I was black or white. And that sounds so bad to say, but that's how I felt. That's how confused I was as a child or as a teenager. Am I black? Am I white? I remember everyone like making jokes in high school. It was like, oh, you're just an Oreo. You're just a black guy. You're just a black guy on the outside, but a white guy on the inside. And it kept me. To be real, it felt good. Like it felt good to be accepted. And I was accepting those roles. I was playing into it more than I should have. And it wasn't until I think I wanted to say maybe I joined the military that I decided, like I'm sick of being told I'm acting white. I don't want to be that way anymore. I want to fit in with everyone. I don't want to just be in a bubble. I don't want to constantly be told I'm acting white or I'm acting black. I just want to be me. And I'm not going to go too much further into this because uh, I kind of want to keep you guys interested and give you some more for next time. And I don't want to scare off any of my listeners. I hope you guys did enjoy this little bit of insight into, more of an insight into my awkward, confusing life. If you're still interested, stay tuned. More will be coming. Like I said, I plan on doing one-off episodes every so often, just kind of intermission into, or just like a break to talk about me. And so you can get to know me a little bit more. I plan on having more guests soon. This virus is making it kind of hard, but I hope everyone stays safe, make good choices, and stay active. Create a new hobby, find something different, and yeah, just dare to be different. I hope you guys have a good night, good day at work, and be blessed.